Welcome to the Cincy Postcast. It's your boy, the Chief. And before we get started today, I want to talk with you about our friends at Streetside Brewery. If you've been listening to the Cincy Postcast, you know that we're all huge fans of Streetside. It's the place all of Cincinnati is talking about. You know that conversation they were having the other day at your office with the door closed, and you were worried they were talking about you? Wrong. They were talking about how much they love Streetside Brewery too. And it's easy to see why. Streetside is a neighborhood brewery that emphasizes great beer and a great atmosphere. And speaking of atmosphere, they've got fall on the mind at Streetside with their pumpkin spice latte, Return of the Mac Blonde, and their Rainy Day Clubhouse Fest beer. If you're listening to this episode on release day, it's not too late to head on down to Streetside Oktoberfest to enjoy a few pints with live German music. If you're listening to this after the Thursday release day, you know what? Head on down to Streetside anyway. They've got live music in the tap room, food trucks out front, and events happening all throughout the calendar. You can learn more at their website, streetsidebrewery.com. And when you go, be sure that you mention the Cincy Postcast to your bartender to get $1 off your pints. It'll save you money, and let them know they made a good decision sponsoring this otherwise mediocre content. Streetside Brewery, the greatest beers of the 80s, 90s, and today. And on the postcast today, we've got a great show for you. FC Cincinnati is on international break, and a date with Columbus looms for Hell is Real next weekend. But you know what? That's future us problems. Today, it's all about Luca Orellano and his record-setting goal. We've got official measurements from the FC and a spot in history for the Wonder Strike from Saturday. Pro referees getting their feels with a cryptic tweet about referee abuse. We break down what it could possibly mean, who it's in reference to, and if Socrates could help us better understand things. In segment 2, we're joined by Brandon Trame, founder and president of the Den Cincy UC Fan and Tailgate Group, as well as one of the original founding members of the Pride SG. It's a great conversation about college sports culture and soccer fandom, including where they intersect. In segment 3, we're going in the 11 and out of the 18. You add it all up, and that'll be your postcast. You ready? Let's jam. Oh, and joining me to talk about all that and more, again, it's just Grayson. Grayson, Kevin has left us unsupervised for now 2 straight episodes. How are we feeling about this? Is this sustainable if he doesn't come home?
There's no one way to find out.
Yeah.
You know, as Socrates said, know thyself.
Know thyself.
Yeah. And I think we are learning about ourselves more and more.
Yeah. Yeah, we're learning. We're it's like the parents left money for pizza and we're just sort of getting by until they decide they want to come home, or until someone wants to call Child Protective Services on the two of us and and try and figure things out here. We had an international break. We're on international break right now, I should say. No soccer this week. No soccer this weekend. At what point does withdrawal start coming through? Because it feels like we just had one of these breaks, and now we're back on another break. It's not great for content purposes.
Something tells me the team will find ways to generate content.
Yeah,
it just seems like there's drama one way or the other.
Right. Are you referring to Nick Haglin's Bed Boys video where he posted content of himself and Matt Miazga rehabbing to the classic theme song from the show Cops?
Not just him and Matt Miazga. It was Isaiah Foster and Alec Can in what I could only wonder was potentially a HIPAA violation.
Yeah, for a league that doesn't really document a lot of its injuries with any great clarity, it is kind of telling that the most information we've gotten about the status of a couple of these players is watching a music video shot by Nick Hagland.
I mean, Isaiah Foster looked like he was like on like a dialysis machine or something. Like he was like strapped down with like tubes.
You know what really is missing from soccer culture is, I don't know if you've come across this on your timeline, But
You know what Isaiah Foster looked like? He looked like if he was a U.S. men's national team adjacent Twitter influencer trying to trying to scam people.
right. Or like he was one of those people like the YouTuber that gets to like actually join the team for a day or something like that. But like it just turns out he goes to medical the entire time because he gets hurt. What soccer is missing is in professional football, whenever someone is hurt or there's injuries of people like at training in practice or in a game, you've got accounts like Pro Football Doc where they sit and they make a diagnosis about what's wrong with the player just from watching TV. We really don't have a soccer doc like this that sits, watches games, and then can say with absolute certainty, oh, that is a patella tendon. It's clear you can see this from the replay that it ripples right there. He's gone for at least 6 months. I need a soccer doc that watches things like this and can tell me how the rehab's going, what's going on with this. I need someone that is overly confident in their ability to make a medical diagnosis based on 10 seconds of footage.
I always wonder about that. Like, if you're a medical doctor and you're just watching a football game and you're making a YouTube video about like diagnosing a player's injury and the extent of the injury and the recovery time and everything, you should get your license taken away.
Someone
right?
should ask some questions, I think. Like, at the very least, how often you're wrong should definitely be a factor in whether or not your license is renewed. I don't know if doctors renew their license, but somebody should be asking more questions if you feel very confident saying with absolute certainty that you can know what a muscular injury is through pads, through a uniform, based on one replay angle.
And, you see this kind of thing a lot in elsewhere, even outside of sports, with like psychiatrists will like come on and they'll like diagnose celebrities and athletes and politicians with various classes of mental illness. And I'd ask the same question about them, except as we know, psychiatry is not real.
Okay, Tom Cruise, hang on. I just assume they're all doing the person who I blame for all of this is Jim Cramer, the host of Mad Money, where it is a person that is just going on and shouting at the top of his voice things with absolute certainty that like no one really knows. But as long as you have a microphone in front of you or a platform and you sound like you know what you're talking about, people start to pay attention to you. And so, like, it's just been the Jim Cramer of this field. Like, Pro Football Doc is the Jim Cramer of sports medicine, where he's just going to say things with certainty that no one can possibly know. And because he's just being louder than the rest of the people, of course he knows what he's talking about.
Well, that's the thing with, like, all of these shows where it's like Jim Cramer works in, like, a very highly regulated, or he would work in a very highly regulated
Right.
field if he was, like, doing that. If he was just, like, giving you investment advice, right? And it's like TV stock pickers, investment advisors, doctors, lawyers, psychiatrists, all these people that have like, advanced degrees, maybe even a lot of professional experience doing their job. The reason they're doing it on TV is because they can be entertaining and unregulated.
Yeah.
And like to be good at their job, they have to be operating in like the regulated professional setting. So it's just like when you're watching them on TV, they are very demonstrably not doing their job.
No.
Like they're not giving legal advice. They're not giving medical advice. They are just talking.
Yeah. Whenever you have to have a disclaimer at the start of your show that what is happening is for entertainment purposes only, it's like the act should have been up for Miss Cleo as soon as she had to include a disclaimer at the bottom of her fortune telling. This is for entertainment purposes only and no guarantees are made. Like, if you're really a fortune teller.
Now, hold on. But with Miss Cleo, what she's doing on TV is exactly what she would be doing if you were there in person.
Well, that's absolutely true.
The same experience.
It's the same experience, but like
it's no worse.
Once you add the disclaimer, and that's what even Jim Cramer has to add the disclaimer that this is not financial advice. Please do not rely on this as financial advice. At that point, you really should ask some questions about whether or not what you're watching is worth your time.
Yep.
People forget about Miss Cleo. There's going to be an entire generation of people. There probably is already listening to this show who has no idea what Miss Cleo is. That's sad.
If I was on TikTok, I bet there's like TikTokers that do the same thing.
Oh, I guarantee you. Because there's everything that you can think of is happening on TikTok. It's just a question of whether or not you manage to find it in your algorithm or whether your algorithm chooses to show it to you. I don't know. It's I'm a big believer in dead internet culture. I think most of the internet is fake anyway. So yeah, off week, players in the injury room, time to get recovered. But speaking of generating news, the FC did generate one truly massive piece of news. Now, this was starting to percolate a little bit earlier this week. People starting to do the math. We talked about this a little bit on the show on Sunday about just how long was Luca Orellano's free kick that scored the third goal of FC Cincinnati's massive rout of Montreal, CF Montreal. We on this show were talking this goal down a little bit, perhaps, saying that it was only in the 60 to 65 yard range. This triggered's the wrong word here. This isn't Dustborn. This caused some people to maybe question whether or not we were underestimating or overestimating, and people took to the internet. They took to using some geometry off of Google Earth and Google Satellite. I want to say that this influenced some conversation at a higher level in the league and in the team. But as it turns out, people smarter than us did the maths. Luca Orellano officially credited with, I believe, the longest free kick goal in MLS history, and possibly, I believe, the longest non-goalkeeper goal in the history of MLS. Or at the very least, since they started keeping track of this in 2010, which is absurd. Video footage of all these matches exists. You could figure out if something was longer just by watching the tape.
Yeah, so what they announced it as is the longest free kick goal since 2010, which is, I guess, when they started officially tracking the stat. What I had done some additional research, and
because we are the podcast that encourages people to do their own research.
Absolutely, do your own research. What was previously credited as the longest goal in MLS history by The Athletic and the Columbus Dispatch was a goal by David Beckham against, at the time, they might have been the Kansas City Wizards, but now they're Sporting Kansas City.
I believe it was the Kansas City Wiz.
Sure.
Yeah.
In 2008. And it was one where the goalie had come up. It was really late in the game, and Kansas City was down one. So Beckham had a totally open net and got the ball outside the box and shot it down to the other end. There is no, as far as I can tell, there is no official recorded length of this shot. On the LA Galaxy official YouTube page, there's a May 24th, 2020 post titled "David Beckham scores a stunning 60-yard strike from distance." Okay, so this is LA Galaxy's own YouTube page calling it a 60-yard strike. The Columbus Dispatch, in an article from, I think, 2022, described the strike as a 75-yard strike.
All right.
I have not found anybody claiming it was longer than 75 yards. Nobody who was willing to assign a distance to it is willing to call it 75 yards. More longer than 75 yards. So, and then separately, there was a New York Red Bulls goalkeeper who, at least a guy on Twitter is claiming that he scored a goal from 83 yards that was unintentional, a little fluky. It was one of those goal kicks that takes like a really high bounce.
Right. Or gets caught in the cross breeze and the goalkeeper loses sight of it. Yeah.
So those are the only contenders I can find. And, given that there is no official distance assigned to either of them, and LA Galaxy themselves are calling it a 60-yard strike.
Yeah.
They have every incentive to overestimate. And then the Dispatch, who is our paper of record, called it a 75-yard strike. I'm willing to call it.
Yeah.
And give Luca Orellano the official postie for the longest goal by an outfield player in Major League Soccer history.
Are you saying you've seen enough?
I've seen enough. I think this is a situation where you see some people online kind of poo-pooing it, saying like I think Laurel said that there are believed to have been longer shots from open play. Whenever people say that, it's like, well, believed by whom?
Yeah.
And what shots? Like, I don't know, name them,
Right.
right? But that's not a challenge to Laurel. That's a challenge to Major League Soccer.
Right. I believe in a lot of things. That doesn't make them true.
But this is a situation, I think, where at best, you can say that there is no reliable, verifiable, longer shot than Orellano's. And in situations where reality cannot be verified, you get to pick your own.
Yes.
And the reality I choose to live in is that Orellano has the longest goal in Major League Soccer history.
Yeah. My reality I choose is that, Orellano has the longest goal for an outfield player in MLS history. Barrial's Puskas nominee was not deflected. These are the realities I choose to live in because there is not definitive proof to the contrary that would force me to change my own belief.
Yeah, and if, people are free to believe otherwise. Gary Kasparov can think that the entire Middle Ages was an invented myth to downplay Russia's role in Western history.
I'm a big missing time in the medieval era too. I do believe that.
You can believe all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I think I will leave others to be, I don't know, more objective or more critical of evaluating the facts here. Whenever it comes to stuff like this, and I could sit around and try to be like the most right person about it.
And I'd be okay with that because it's the internet and there's nothing more important than being right on the internet.
I think about this time, I was like much younger and I had gotten a professional award and I told my dad about it. And his first question was, do you get more money for that?
Yeah, that's my dad's first question too.
And of course the answer is no. Awards are things they give you when they don't want to give you money.
Right. It's recognition. Recognition is priceless.
Yeah. And so I always think about that when it's like, do I get more money if I try to triangulate Beckham's shot or try to find some other, justify some other goal being longer than Orellano's? No, I don't get anything. I just probably feel more annoyed. So I like, as I said, we are awarding Luca Orellano the official postie for longest goal in Major League Soccer history.
Yeah. The reality I live in. GB didn't bite that person. Greedo shot first. Luca Orellano, longest goal in MLS history. So, to put this in perspective, the official number from FC Cincinnati is 79.81 yards. That works out to 239.43 feet. And I really enjoyed this one, 43.11 Luca's. So Luca is now an officially recognized form of measurement in the FC Cincinnati cinematic universe. I now need everything on the FC Cincinnati website to also include a conversion to Luca's. I want to know how many Luca's tall new signings are. I want to know the dimension of the field in Luca's. I think this just needs to be a thing now that we're going to be measuring everything by going forward. Chef,
I'll say this. I don't love Lucas as the plural for one Luca unit,
like
because it looks like Lucas.
What about Lucas? Would be like a locus.
I was thinking Luki, Luqui.
Oh, I like that. Luki. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Maybe with a little accent over the I.
right. Yeah, it does look like Lucas. That a Star Wars fan could be confused right there. I do appreciate that.
Yeah.
The Pride Cincy, shout out to the Pride Cincy, provides this context as well. 239 feet, 0.43 feet in Imperial Freedom units is the distance of the shot. For comparison, the tower on the Roebling Suspension Bridge, 230 feet tall. The Leaning Tower of Pisa, 185 feet tall. The Arc de Triomphe, 160 feet tall. Chicago Water Tower, 154 feet tall. Christ the Redeemer, 98 feet tall. Luca Orellano's goal stands above all of them. And that is why we celebrate it today. And speaking of celebrate, so now that we have this milestone created, how is this commemorated going forward at TQL Stadium? In other sports, like for example, I used to be a resident of the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, lived in the DMV area. I lived in the DMV area in an era when the Washington Nationals were not a thing. Yes, I'm old. We used to drive up to Baltimore to go see baseball games. On Utah Street in Camden Yards, which is the area directly behind the right field fence, there is plaques that are placed in places where exceptionally long home runs have been hit. There's one actually on the old warehouse that you see behind the stadium that commemorates when Ken Griffey Jr. actually hit a baseball that hit the warehouse on a fly, I believe, in a home run derby. What should TQL Stadium do to commemorate the spot where the longest goal from an outfield player in MLS history was taken?
I mean, I think, you could have a little hash there.
Yeah.
You could shine a light on it.
I like that. I'm a big fan of shining the light.
Or you could have some type of marking, like above the stadium from the spot, and it moves back. You could also have, I've got it.
Yeah? Talk to me.
We put a pole. I don't know how tall TQL Stadium is.
Right. It's
but
tall-ish.
you raise, so you raise a pole that is the height from the ground of the longest, that's like this little antenna, like they have like the Burj Khalifa, to be taller. You have a little like thing that is that distance from the ground of the longest goal ever scored in the stadium.
So that the official stadium height is the actual longest goal
ever
ever scored. So the official height will be TQL Stadium of 239.43 feet.
Yeah.
I like that. I was going to go with just the simple, like on a golf course, they'll have the sprinkler head give you the yardage distance, and that they should completely, when they tear the field up at some point, redo the irrigation system to ensure there's a sprinkler head at exactly where Luca took that shot, and then just have a little thing on there that marks the location where it took place. The light eternally lighting the spot from like a spotlight somewhere, so like even when they have the grow lights on the field, that one little spot is illuminated at all times. I think that would be a classy move as well. On a scale of 1 to 10, how massive is this in the history of FC Cincinnati?
Oh, you gotta go 10.
I gotta go 10. Yeah.
Setting records.
Yeah. You know who doesn't have the record for the longest goal scored by an outfield player of all time? Every other MLS team. It belongs to FC Cincinnati. Belongs to Luca Orellano. That highlight.
If you can believe, go ahead.
I was gonna say that highlight lives forever. That's just really cool.
If you can believe that the official attendance every game is 25,513, you can believe Luca Orellano is the longest goal in MLS history.
What are you talking about? The official attendance never lies as to the number of people that were present inside the stadium at any given moment.
I'm sure that number has been exactly in the stadium even one time. All right. Let's go. Moving on.
Moving on. That's certainly enough about goals being scored. Grayson, I don't know if you caught this. We have another ref situation here in the good old MLS. The pro referees are at it again. They sent out one of their favorite cryptic tweets to send out. Came out yesterday. Referee abuse and assault is unacceptable. Whether physical, verbal, or written, it has no place. When abuse and assault occurs in professional game, this behavior will be copied and find its way to the grassroots level. Without referees, there is no game. PRO is committed to working with all the professional leagues to help eradicate abuse and assault from soccer. It's funny because they just dropped this with absolutely no context in between a tweet about the assignments for the USL Super League and an assignments for MLS Next Pro. There's no wider context as to what they're referring to, what the story is. And eagle-eyed viewer Grayson noted, oh, that's you. Grayson noted that this is the exact same tweet they sent out when Pat Noonan received his extra game of suspension. So what's going on here? Are we about to be without our head coach for yet another major game?
So the last time, and as far as I can tell, the only other time that Pro tweeted this was July 29th of this year. 4 days later, as Chief mentioned, Noonan got his extra game suspension against for the game against Inter Miami. My initial thought was, this is not about us. Because in the NYCFC game, a NYCFC player got a red card for something that's not clear. I have heard it was for contact with the ref. And then NYCFC player Keaton Parks, gave the third team their due. Said it felt like there was a third team out there and it was on the side of Columbus. And so that was the most volatile, or most, I guess, prominent incident involving referees from the weekend. We also know, though, from the Matt Miazga situation, that pro referees, at least the referees themselves, are not above trying to influence discipline appeals. And we know that Pat Noonan indicated that they were considering appealing Miles Robinson's yellow card that is keeping him out of the game against Columbus next week. So there is a small chance that this is relating to things Noonan said after Robinson got the yellow card, or about the Robinson appeal, or things that may or may not be being said behind closed doors. I would still be leaning towards it being a reference to NYCFC, and if we see one of their players getting a multiple game suspension or even any extra games this week, then we'll know it was probably that. But nevertheless, it certainly means something.
Yeah.
Like, they were definitely referring to something. It's their version of nice season you're having. Shame if anything happened to it.
It's the equivalent of the mob telling you that your protection money is late, is what this is. It's interesting to me. I love the phrasing on this. Whether physical, verbal, or written, it has no place. What the hell is written referee abuse or written assault? What the hell is that? Like,
tweets at Pro.
Close the app, okay? Like,
I agree.
Close the app.
Nobody. They don't need to have a Twitter account.
They shouldn't have a Twitter account. You absolutely shouldn't. And here's the other thing too: is that, like, homie, you volunteered to take this job. And it's important to say that you voluntarily have chosen to be a referee, but also that you're not a volunteer. You got a big ass raise this offseason, and at a certain point, if you want to be the third team, start acting like the third team and start like being a team that's accountable to things. If it's because they were referred to as the third team by NYCFC, that's extra hilarious because they gave themselves that name. Nobody was calling the officials the third team before the officials started calling themselves the third team. You can't say, I want my nickname to be Diesel, and then get mad when everybody calls you Diesel. It doesn't work that way. You can't get... Number one, you should never give yourself your own nickname. That's the surest path to being a loser. But if you do give yourself a nickname, don't be upset when it catches on. That's absurd.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy because it does the whole gosh, I forget what the language was of I think it was in connection with the Miazga statement. It was something like, like officials should never feel unsafe in their workplace or in an environment or whatever.
Right.
And, I agree that officials should never be unsafe. I don't think I have any control over how the officials feel.
Right.
And I do think that they've shown themselves to be pretty excitable and unpredictable and, I don't know, tender.
Little tender. Tender's a good word for it because what this is, and this is if you're of a certain age, this makes more sense. This is putting up a cryptic away message on AIM or a cryptic Facebook status update. Like when you have the one friend that's a little extra and their thing on Facebook is, I don't want to talk about it right now. Okay, man, what's bothering you? Like this is the equivalent of that. It provides no context as to what's going on, but it begs the question of, okay, so is there a problem right now we need to be aware of? It's such passive aggressive, just shitty behavior. And I can't understand how this would ever be tolerated in any other line of work. Just to like, this is the way you communicate, is doing this. Come on.
Yeah. And I do think that they think that any criticism is abuse.
Yeah.
I really do think that's their standpoint. I mean, I've said it before. They have so much in common with like certain other unions that I can think of that enforce rules and think that nobody should have any questions about how they do their job.
Can you imagine if NFL officials behaved this way? That like,
no, I can't.
That
I really
any
can't.
criticism of the official is unacceptable, and how dare you?
I heard of an individual who made a fairly. I heard this story secondhand, but it's a friend of a friend. Is a football referee. Made a controversial call on a nationally televised game, and got a lot of comments about it online. I think maybe even got like letters. And his reaction to it was, whatever, I was right. I made the right call.
Right.
I didn't see any tweets about it,
Yeah. Yeah, it's just we have the specialist of special referees here in Major League Soccer, and it's I don't know. We talked about it enough, but they really missed the boat when it came to the collective bargaining agreement to do something about this and try to at least force some more accountability or force some more professionalism on these people. But they chose not to do that. And here we find ourselves yet again wondering when they will grace us with their explanation for what it is that has them in their feels and tweeting from the Greatest Hits collection their pre-prepared statement or image.
If they want to delete all of their social media and say, you should only hear from us during the game, that's fine.
Yeah.
But if they want to weigh in outside the lines whenever they want to,
right?
Maybe they should have to, talk to Pat Brennan and Laurel Failer every now and then,
or do what truly tough people do: turn comments off. Just turn the replies off. Just say what you got to say. Turn the replies off. That never ends up looking poor for someone. Grayson, anything we're forgetting about FC Cincinnati this week? It has not been a newsy week. We still don't have Teenage in. Teenage is off in Africa competing at the African Cup of Nations.
We got some people got their season ticket holder gifts.
Oh,
I don't want to talk about them because I know some people get touchy about spoilers, and maybe not everybody has gotten theirs yet.
Right. It's lovely.
But I will say this. It's nice.
It's very nice.
I liked it.
Yeah, I think that of the season ticket holder gifts, the only ones I think that compare would have been the shot glasses. Yep. Just because those came during the middle of the pandemic, and boy, was I in need of more things to drink whiskey out of. I do keep on my desk the inaugural season metal plate. That was always fun. I don't know what else you're supposed to do with that other than just display it places. But this season ticket holder package, I would comfortably say, is the best one they have done so far. So if you're the type of person that likes to really rant about season ticket holder gifts, I think that you will find yourself lacking content this year. So I think everyone's going to be very, very happy when they get them. It is truly a unique package that I'm happy that they did. Otherwise, I think that's it for FC Cincinnati right now. No news is good news on this front. But we're still working here. We're still providing content. We're still cranking it out for you guys. We have a very special guest in segment 2, Brandon Trame, who is the head of the Den Tailgate group for the University of Cincinnati, talking to us a little bit about UC football. College sports started up just recently. College football started up just recently. So we're talking a little college football, little fan culture here in Cincinnati. Also, one of the founding members of the Pride Cincy SG. So talking a little bit about the overlap between the various sports fandoms here in Cincinnati. So give it a listen, and we'll be back on the other side of that for segment 3, where we'll clean everything up for the episode and do a little in the 11 out of the 18. So stick around.
This episode is also brought to you by Cincy Shirts. Look, you know Cincy Shirts. You love Cincy Shirts. They've been with FCC from the beginning, and we here at the Postcast, we're just huge fans of their work. They were very early sponsors of the Postcast here, and we have always enjoyed their work. If you head on over to cincyshirts.com, that's Cincy with a Y, shirts.com, and check out using the promo code ThePostCincy, all one word, all caps, you will get 10% off your order, and you let them know that we sent you. Like, they have MLS and MLSPA licensed FCC gear available online and at their 2 retail locations in Hyde Park and Fort Mitchell. If they don't have your size on the shelf, they can print you one on the spot. That is a fantastic feature and something that I have used as well. So again, special thank you to Cincy Shirts. Head on over to their website or check the link down below in the description for the promo code ThePostCincy for 10% off your next order. And a huge thank you to Cincy Shirts.
Oh, and joining us here in segment 2, we have a very, very, very special guest here. It is Brandon Trame, head of the Den Tailgate group for the University of Cincinnati football, and also founding member of the Pride Cincy. I'm going to do my best Kevin Wallace impersonation here. Brandon, how you doing today?
There was a lot of varies there with the special guest introduction. I'm doing well. Thank you for letting me join your show.
Oh, well, it's the extra vary is, so you get a vary if we're just, bringing you on the show. The extra vary is because Brandon and I go way back here. We've actually known each other for a number of years. Before we get things started and get too deep into this, in your own words, if you want to tell the 12 listeners here of the Postcast, what is the Den?
Well, the timing of when the Pride started and when the Den started are the same. So I like to think of it as a supporters group in some ways for UC Bearcats athletics, mostly football, because that's more where your party atmosphere surrounds it. But really, at its core, it's just a tailgate party. And UC's campus is very unique compared to the rest of the college football world. So back in 2015, 2016, we decided to organize something a little bit different that fits UC, and it's grown to, a fan community that follows Bearcat, the roller coaster of Bearcats football and athletics.
So you're a UC alum. We should point out for the people here, it would be
Mhm.
kind of odd if you were starting a major UC supporters program if you weren't in fact a UC alum as well. What was it that you saw in the UC scene originally that made you decide that they needed a group like this or they could benefit from having groups like this?
There was one kind of playbook that I had followed, and it was the Republic of Cincinnati. This is a group of guys that was doing something similar. The grid tailgate that exists on campus on Sigma Commons was relatively new. They they being UC Athletics went down to Ole Miss. They actually did a tour, stayed what different campuses were doing when this program started to become serious. Um, they saw this thing at Ole Miss and said, "Oh, we could do that. We have a plot of land that works for us." When I graduated, it was less out of the idea that this was needed, and it was more of a place for our friends to stay connected after graduation. So that's how it started. It's a membership based thing. We all said, "Hey, let's put in a little bit of money, and we'll put all that into food and drinks and the cost to set up the tailgate," and it's just grown from there. So we really found that it was uh, something that fans needed, more of a casual fan. If you didn't want to have all the responsibility and logistics of setting up your own tailgate situation, we take care of all that for you.
So do you view someone like a Bengals Jim as a role model or someone that you are actually inspiring with the work that you do down on Sigma Sigma?
I've talked to Jim before. I found it funny in our conversation, a lot of the similar things that he struggles with and the successes that they've had, um, I've experienced with the down as well. It was humbling to find out as I think about, how much can I grow this and whatnot. The Bengals are just a way different situation. And college football is always going to be capped at some level of interest, especially locally here in Cincinnati, with all of our attention going in different ways. But the model of what they have, Bengal gyms before the Roar Tailgate is exactly what I want to bring to UC. And I feel like we're achieving that goal to some extent, but there's always more people that I'd love to come down.
And so, with this specifically, what is it about the tailgate culture and tailgating in particular that drew you as to be something that you wanted to plan and something that you wanted to be not just the person wandering around, participating in, but I actually want to organize this. And in some ways, this is going to be a parallel question a little bit to
Yeah.
later on down the road with the supporters group question. But what was it that made you decide I want to be the host of the party instead of the person attending the party?
It's always been that way for me, going back to Holy Cross High School and being in charge of the pep club and growing up in athletics, sports family. I've always been the organizer of these types of things, revolved around athletics for the most part. I know that there's community organizers for many different things. For me, my interest has been sports. For all of our friends, it's grown to be a little bit more than the party that it was when we were in our 20s. It's our 5 to 6 times a year where we get to see each other, um, not just homecoming. So I'm trying to lean in and think a little bit more about that third place, which lacks in society. Trying to hear about that, but I'm also not trying to take it too seriously. It's a college football tailgate party. Um, y- you know, the timing of it as it relates to the pride too. I was just coming out of undergrad years. I was really involved with athletics, spirit, culture at UC, and that hasn't really died that down all that much. And I've just kind of carried that into my life after undergrad.
And so, with that specifically, you've also seen a growth in UC athletics and where UC athletics have gone, even from where you were when you started out when you were an undergrad. Because you're saying what year did you graduate in? I want to say like 2015, 2016, you were
Yep,
saying?
15, you got it. Yep.
Right. And so, how has it been? And again, there's this. It's fascinating parallels to again what we'll pivot to with FC Cincinnati here. But like as UC football has grown and as UC football has sort of built back to that level where it was in the early 2000s, early 2010s, what have you seen in terms of the fan culture and how the fan culture has responded to the growth of UC athletics?
Yeah, I mean, really similar, like you said, to FC Cincinnati, really trying to capture the moment and, answering the call. We're not dumb, right? Like we know that there's, larger, there's decision makers, there's boardrooms that us fans aren't a part of, but we know that we have a part that helps influence those decisions. I think UC fans have met the moment. There's donors that have had to, open up their wallets and support at that level. Us fans have to buy tickets and you get down there on campus and it is big time. I mean, it really is feel special, a special environment because it's all on top of each other and doesn't happen all that often. Historically, being a basketball school, the football environment, although it's 20 years, give or take, of us being a pretty us, I don't make the tackles, um, being a legit program, it still kind of feels like those moments are newish. So I just kind of feel like the fan base kind of gets it. We've known that we're a part of it, but we've also been able to meet the moment. As we look forward, it's also a complicated question, Chief, because college athletics are more difficult to follow. Um, I'm also getting older. I don't ride the roller coaster as much as I used to of the wins and losses. Doesn't mean I'm not going to celebrate the wins. I don't mourn the losses as much. But the Den, we're going to be right there no matter what to offer a place for people to come and hang out and enjoy themselves.
It's funny, we don't shame on this podcast for using the we pronouns when it comes to following a sports team. Don't sell yourself short. You may not be making the tackles, but you're down there in spirit.
It's easier when you're, a podcast for a professional sports team where the athletes are a little bit closer in age. Maybe not college. There's a famous line. They stay the same age. So
I think it was, yeah. There was like, I saw a tweet the other day that was like, oh, it's a time of year when like I want to kill myself because the 19-year-olds that go to my favorite college didn't tackle enough times or whatever.
And like, I don't want to get into this like and waste all your time here in the segment, but it's just more of a challenge. I think I'm feeling it this year as well. Coming off of a 3-win season, the expectations or whatever, but also we're not dumb. Like you looked at the landscape, Ohio State paid up $25 million for a team. That's the rumor, or I don't know if that's written down or anything. So like this, I'm not saying that's wrong. It's just a weird time as we either get used to it or things start to figure out and we can better understand the sport that we all have come to love.
I mean, on the plus side, as more of a college basketball fan than a college football fan, I do feel better about booing now that I know these people are being well paid. Before, you would have to tell yourself, they're just kids. It's not their fault. It's like, no, you're like the DJ Uwungale from Florida State. Yeah. Like, he sucks and he's being paid to suck. So you can boo all you want on that guy.
I'm not.
When he stops throwing interceptions, I'll start to learn how to pronounce his name correctly.
Yeah, I mean, just wait to call out like Dylan Gabriel when he starts to suck later on. He's on his third school. Do you
find that it's become more difficult to follow college sports and be passionate about college sports now that the players change so frequently and you don't get that opportunity to see a player come through your program as a freshman, and see them develop all the way through it?
That's easy for me to answer as a UC fan because we had some really unique opportunities to do that really recently, with Des Ridder. The Des Ridder situation doesn't happen. It won't happen again. It just won't for the most part. But then, if I'm an Ohio State fan or if I'm a Kentucky basketball fan, I kind of want that. Like, I want to only know these guys wearing my team's uniform for 1 to 2 years because I want them to be good enough to go pro. So my experience as a UC fan is like, I'm getting used to that now. that Brendan Sorsby is coming in from Indiana. He's a sophomore. Maybe he'll be here for a while. If he's good enough, he's probably going to get paid to go somewhere else, or maybe he'll go to the league. So, it's tough to get used to. I don't have an answer for that. Ask me in a couple of years.
Yeah. It's the new reality everyone's dealing with, it seems like.
But, game one, they play Towson, they play a whole bunch of guys. I start to get used to the names. Like it seems to be like this is the moment, and let me enjoy the moment of the season, knowing that I'm gonna have to get used to the next one next fall.
When it comes to, go ahead, Grayson.
Are there any like characters in the Bearcats tailgating culture? Like the well, I guess like
you're talking about
Chief mentioned Bengals Jim, or you got like the weird Buckeye guy. What's that? Yeah, like the Bucknut guy. There's like the Jets have like what Fireman.
No, I'm not sure.
Fireman Ed.
I think there's an Ohio State fan in this chat. That stuff doesn't happen really. I mean, obviously you'll see students do their thing. There's no real characters. I mean,
do we need a character in UC fan culture to really make the next step?
His name's Darren Russell. He's a Den Tailgater. He's a character. I wouldn't call him, like similar things you'd see in the NFL. But
I think what we're all asking is there someone in the Den who would promise to eat a solo cup full of shit with a spoon if UC loses a major game?
I tell you what, if I put that out through my burner account of the Den UC, I can't just delete that account. I'd have to own up to that.
The internet doesn't forget, man. I forget where Oh, they know who he is. Like, apparently, like, somebody's found his fiance's account, and it's like, it's a big debate online now as to, like, at what point is the man chosen just to let himself live? And you can't go out there and really go doxing him publicly.
So I will say we have a live DJ at all of our tailgates, and one of the mainstays. He's at most of the games. His name. No, it's not.
But it's not.
Although
DJ
I do like money, and we do pay. So if he's open,
he might be better on the ones and twos than he is playing quarterback at this point.
Yeah. I saw a funny, meme today. Was that DJ just accepted an NIL deal from Waste Management? Not our DJ, not DJ Mike. DJ is a character. He was a Bearcat mascot when he was in school, and if he were to, get himself in a situation where he made a promise over an outcome of a game, I bet he would pay up. He's a man of his word.
That's good. Yeah, I don't respect the people that go 0 dark 30 when they can't back up their words. Deleting tweets, deleting your account. That's a coward's way out. And eventually someone's going to ask him, "Hey, whatever happened to you on social media? Why did all of your posts disappear? What's going on with that?"
Maybe he'll tell himself he was on a social cleanse, or he saw a documentary.
Right, that turns out the Russians are stealing all of your information. On the subject of UC, to finish it out, Big 12 second year, won their opener, maybe a few problems with the defense in terms of yards given up in the first half, but hey, it's the first game, nobody cares. What's the prognosis for UC this year? And I ask this because prior to the year, I saw their win total posted in Vegas at 5.5 was the over under, but also saw that Scott Satterfield was one of the 10 coaches with the shortest odds to be fired this year. So I always have a tough time reconciling those two things, which means I don't think anyone knows how good they're going to be this year. What's your take?
I mean, the odds on him getting fired, like, those are for clicks.
Right. No, financially, it's a hilarious thing when you look at how much money UC would have to pay him to go away.
And that ain't happening here. And I think they would give him a much bigger leash, a much longer leash to get things right. There's been so many coaches in my fandom of UC football. He's not the biggest hoorah guy, but I also know that he was in a really crappy situation at Louisville. He was never their guy for the fan base, and the AD that hired him was not the AD when he left. So his time was going to be up there pretty quickly, whether it was his fault or not. say they're relatively successful, all things considered. 6 wins is where I'm at with things right now. That get you bowl eligible. Pretty tough schedule, given the circumstances of flipping a roster and their record last year. So my expectations are about right where Vegas has them. I do see them getting to that 6 win though.
Overall, the move to the Big 12. Your thoughts, positive, negative, even just setting aside the financial aspects of it. Have you enjoyed these Big 12 teams rolling through? Has it been a good thing in terms of like your interest?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get our ass kicked by Iowa State and whatnot on a rainy day, but like I was having this thought the other day. We have a Super Bowl contending roster of the NFL for the Bengals. I'm a huge Reds fan. Don't want to touch that. We have an MLS team, and we have the Bearcats in the Big 12, and all things that the whole athletic department, basketball, football. Xavier's in the Big East, and getting back to competing at a high level. All of these things didn't exist when like something like the Pride started. All this was aspirational. We're looking at the Bearcats being in the American Athletic Conference and me trying to throw parties when cussing Temple and Tulane, sorry,
It's all
Ricochet
right.
down to
We saw.
Tulane, um, are coming to town. But not just the competition of use the same analogies for the USL and FC Cincinnati. It's a lot more difficult to spark interest in those things when it's really limited to the local level. You don't have any sort of outside presence. No one from Temple is coming to UC. And in the American, you actually had to allocate more tickets to AAC opponents than you do in the Big 12, which is counterintuitive. So now, back to the Den being a welcome spot. I'm not sure if there's any fan of a team that the Bearcats play at home this year, but you're more than welcome. We want to be that welcome mat for not just Bearcat fans, but for visiting teams too, because we know that a lot of them are coming to town.
I'd be remiss now at this point if we didn't pivot to some FC Cincinnati content here. You were, I think, Mark Schweikowski of the Schwei, guest of the Postcast, and of Jim Trace and the Makers, said of you would be the founding member of FC Cincinnati supporters group culture, most likely to be missed on a test if there was a test given of who the people were. How did you become involved in FCC supporters group culture, and what drew you to FC Cincinnati in year one before anyone had attended a game?
I saw Schwei's comment in the Discord and I laughed out loud. It's really funny. What drew me in was a lot of what was happening in the soccer world around that time when FC Cincinnati was announced. I know my story is probably similar to others. I had just come back a year or two earlier from a study abroad. We went to a Barcelona match. Tried to follow that when I got home. That didn't work out. Just didn't care to follow La Liga on my own time here in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. So when FC Cincinnati was announced, for me, I knew that it was the only thing that was going to catch my attention. I knew that I wanted to become more of a soccer fan, to learn more about the game. I wasn't going to happen with Chelsea or with Barcelona. As much as I thought could try, it wasn't happening. I needed something local. So the moment that FC Cincinnati was announced, I knew it was serious. I had worked at Great American prior in college as a co-op, so I knew the people that were involved were going to make it work. And everything about it from day one felt like it was playing a different game. It wasn't playing a game similar to the other USL clubs. It was just doing things differently. And again, back to kind of the similar note about the Big 12 and Bearcats fans, I felt like we all knew it. All of us that call us supporters of FC Cincinnati, we all kind of understood that there's a moment here, there's something happening, and we need to take advantage of it. And I feel like we collectively took advantage of it.
And so what drew you to the idea of let's get involved from a supporters movement as opposed to just like, hey, I'm going to put down for my season tickets and actually go to the games?
Yeah, well, I knew that I couldn't go to a lot of the games. I mean, that's the attendance at that level. I was never going to commit at that level. It's like the Patrick Star meme. Like, I'm going to take this thing and I'm going to put it over here. I really thought that I could take all of this energy and interest in these ideas and skills that I had from my undergrad time at UC, being involved with rally cats and community engagement, and then just put it at the Pride. I just thought that they would just match. I knew some of the guys that had caught wind of it and started to put together some framework around what this could be. And I said, I'm in. Let's do this. I want to try and be a part of this. The reason I'm not a part of it anymore is, like, it's a complicated question that I don't have a clear answer to, but supporters group culture just impressed me and blew me away. And I was not ready for it. It just became something bigger than I thought it was ever going to be. To everyone's credit, it just became something way bigger than I was suited for.
When you first got started in supporters group culture, when was the moment, and it might have been at that first game for a lot of people, when was the moment when you realized, oh, this is going to work at a fan level? Like, it's one thing to say, oh, there's ownership that's committed to making this work. When did you realize that the city and the fans were going to rally behind this too, and this might have some staying power?
Probably Columbus. Probably the Columbus match at Nippert. Even if we didn't get the result that we got, it felt like that match for me. There may have been other moments for others before that time, but winning that match was like, oh, let's do this again. Like this wasn't just one time. Like, it feels like we're gonna play them again, and we all were surprised, but I also wasn't surprised. I felt like it was a little bit of destiny.
Yeah, I had that vibe too.
Chicago was just a fever dream. I wasn't at the match watching it, like being so into something that didn't exist in my life however many months prior. So for me, it was a Columbus match.
Was there any portion of your UC fandom that made it easy to translate hatred for Louisville and the Louisville City FC Cincinnati rivalry?
I'm a Northern Kentucky native, so the hatred for Louisville or other Kentucky schools, I didn't need to grow anymore. It already existed.
One of those people that says, has to specify Northern Kentucky. I'm from Northern Kentucky. I need to make sure everyone understands this fact.
When we would do our Florida trips, like one does, my parents would say, when we're asked by people that we meet, where you're from, they'd say Northern Kentucky, and I tried to quickly cut them off and say Cincinnati, please say Cincinnati. I want them to like us.
They make immediate assumptions about you when you don't specify that.
I know.
It's also a triggering thing. I don't know if you remember this, but there was a robust fight in the fan base about whether or not a team, if they built the stadium in Northern Kentucky, if it would truly be a Cincinnati team. I always found that to be...
at the Covington site?
Yeah.
Or the Newport site?
Newport.
I thought that would have been really
Newport.
cool from a views perspective. I liked the Pirates Stadium. Maybe the Reds should have been over there, did the whole... I thought that would have been kind of neat, but I totally did it.
Mm-hmm.
The river's pretty wide.
And as a result, now we have Megacorp Pavilion in the spot where the stadium would have otherwise been. So I think we all ended up winning. Certainly the Megacorp, whatever that is.
Yeah,
definitely ended up
definitely
benefiting.
something that was pulled out of some sort of comic book universe as the villains company.
Right. They built RoboCop and then tried to kill him. I'm fairly confident. Early FC Cincinnati fan culture. What's your favorite memory or what's your favorite story from the founding days of supporters group culture in early FC Cincinnati years?
I don't have a memory. My participation did fade as things started to really get settled and get going. Meaning the momentum of the supporters culture and the pride and DN and stuff and things like that. There were a lot of characters. I was really sort of taken back by the people that came out of the woodwork in those early days to be a part of it.
It wasn't selling Paul Daner and Mo Egger in on a season-long prediction pool for FC Cincinnati wins and losses during the first match of the year.
That is funny. I really thought that the Den could become this like dual thing between FC Cincinnati and the Bearcats. So then pretty quickly find out that tailgating culture is just not a part of soccer culture. But me, for a second, I thought it could be. Um, Chief, the one meeting down at Molly's, I'm not sure how much work that Payne and Dad and all the crew had done up to that point, but we were there.
Yeah.
You came with me, and as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah. Now I sit here and I'm interviewing you on a podcast. So
The reason we don't have tailgating culture is our stadiums
Yeah.
are in too good of
Yeah, I know
have been in too good
Philadelphia
of
is great.
locations.
Like totally.
Because like Philly Union,
Columbus
Philly
used
has
to.
a tailgating culture. Red
I,
Bull.
I, I thought it
have a
could be that
tailgating
way
culture.
because
Columbus
I did
used
go
to, yeah.
to a U.S. men's national team versus Honduras match in 2014, and that's what I thought. Like, you have this very naive thought of, this is one of the original soccer-specific stadiums. There's this giant parking lot. All that we know in this country is football, so let's just do that same thing over here. Obviously, that's very naive.
Yeah. Different timelines, perhaps. It's been. Thank you for your time and for your getting out here for us. If someone wants to join the Den, how would they go about doing that? Where do they go?
Yeah, the phrase "join the Den" has been the phrase since the early days. But it doesn't need to feel like some sort of commitment or membership situation. Really, it's a tailgate, it's an open party. All are welcome if you want to come down, even if you don't have tickets, you just want to be a part of a Big 12. I mean, it really is a big college football environment right down the street in Clifton. You're more than welcome. Every game will start no later than 3 hours before kickoff. So this Saturday, Bearcats play Pitt. We'll be down there. DJ will be getting going at 9 a.m. Food, we have a keg of Cincy Light for every game. We have big coolers so you can bring your own drinks as well. All the information, all the links to the tailgates and our donation options are at thedenuc.com.
And two final questions. Number one, will you be joining me in Columbus, Ohio in November for the Dave Matthews Band when they take over for Nationwide Arena?
I sure hope so. The Trame family is getting +1 here in a couple of weeks.
That's an excuse.
Yep. So our fall is going to be all about our newborn daughter, but yeah, Dave Matthews right up to Columbus. Let's do it.
And the second question we'll leave with this. Would you like to apologize to the rest of America for Tommy Tuberville?
God. No, we fired him. That was the best decision we ever made. Then he wouldn't be a senator. So
What if you hadn't?
Would America be a better place if you hadn't fired him and then given him a lifetime contract
exactly.
instead?
I had a lot of friends that went to the introductory press conference, and we were very excited at the time for Tommy Tuberville. I'm proud that I was not there.
You know what? There's a lot of sporting events in this town where the joke is that the stadium only sat 50,000, but 500,000 will say they were there. This is one of the rare instances where not being there was actually the correct decision. So,
Yeah,
job well done on that.
My dad says he was at the Freezer Bowl, but I don't believe him.
Well, Brandon, you've been a lovely guest. Thank you so much for joining us, and best of luck for the rest of the year to the Den and for UC football and UC football only.
Got it. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Oh, and we're back. Grayson, it's always fun to dabble a little bit into the other sports here around town. I suspect that we'll be doing a little more of that because I think the Bengals are going to have a pretty damn good year this year. But it's a nice reminder that there is a world outside of FC Cincinnati, despite what we choose to immerse ourselves in here. Good talk.
Yeah. I think we'll find some excuses to talk about the Bengals for sure.
Yeah, I know you as an Ohio State fan were very thrilled to talk about all things Big 12 football. Do you look how much do you look down on the Big 12? Like, is it like little brother or like cousin that you don't really think about unless it's time for the holidays?
I couldn't be bothered to think about it.
$25 million starting 11 or starting 22 for Ohio State. Gotta love it. Grayson, we find ourselves in off-season mode just because we aren't playing a game this weekend. There'll be plenty of time for existential dread about the upcoming Hell is Real match this weekend. But I ask you, are you ready for another round of in the 11, out of the 18 to get the people home this week?
I am.
And I
am ready.
What do you have in your 11 this week, Grayson? Talk to the people here.
In the 11 is going to be American tennis.
Oh. Tell me.
I feel like it's been a while since say American tennis has been on the come up. If it hadn't been for the Williams sisters, there probably would have been quite the gap. But I quite enjoyed the movie Challengers that came out earlier this year. But the more timely news is the 2024 U.S. Open is the first major with multiple American men and women in the semifinals in 21 years.
Wow.
2 men and 2 women both made it. It's Taylor Fritz, Frances Tiafoe, Jessica Pegula, and Emma Navarro. And if you are looking for a rooting interest,
yes,
Frances Tiafoe played at the Cincinnati Open, and I had the pleasure of watching him play. He made a nice little run. He is good friends with FC Cincinnati's DeAndre Yedlin.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I could see Yedlin being a big tennis guy. That would fit a little bit. That would track. It's interesting.
Yeah,
it's interesting. I was thinking about this the other day because the U.S. Open was on at one of the TVs at the gym that I go to. When I was growing up, it was always taken for granted that there was a major American star, especially a major American male star in tennis. And on the female side, on the women's side, Venus and Serena were just dominant forces in the women's game forever. But on the male side, we went from that era with Andre Agassi and Pete Sampras, where they were always like up at the top. They might not have been winning every tournament, but they were challenging for just about every tournament in that mid to late 90s. Andy Roddick was hot in the streets for a minute, but I don't think that, I'm not a tennis head by any stretch of the imagination, but I think the consensus on Roddick was that he was a good player, but not great. And it feels like Roddick was the last great American hope in terms of male tennis, and that the sport has just been dominated by Europeans over most of my adult lifetime. So it's kind of fun to see America on the glow up there a little bit.
Yeah, I think with Andy in particular. So I'm not a tennis expert by any means, but I did work at Kings Island and at the movie theater across the street from Kings Island.
That's good enough for me, right?
So
there.
I have interacted in a service capacity with a number of tennis players, and I think the only reason Andy Roddick always felt like a little bit of disappointment was because he came hot on the heels of a generation that had not just Sampras and Agassi, but like Michael Chang was really competitive. Yep. Jim Courier was really good. And
the dude that used to fight with people all the time, John McEnroe.
And Andy came in and won some significant stuff, but was never going to compete with Federer. Then there were the guys that came in after Federer, and it just was really tough. So we didn't have a top level American man for some time, and hopefully that that changes, because I just want America to dominate as many sports as it can.
No, I agree with that. I do think that no matter what you stand on the United States of America, we're good for most sports in that it's either someone to boo or someone to cheer, depending on which part of the world you're from. And it's felt weird with tennis because Federer and Djokovic and all those guys that have been in Alcaraz right now, There's the psycho that's got the Greek last name, who I really enjoy watching. Grigios or
Yeah.
But like
Um,
the sport is a little better when there is someone from the United States. I think it makes it a little easier to tune into if you're just a casual fan of the sport. Which I
you're thinking of Nick Kyrgios, right?
yeah, where he is just a. If you haven't seen him play before, like he's shouting at himself or people in the crowd, like he's like going unhinged at all possible moments on a match, and he's a lot of fun. If you like people displaying open forms of psychosis while you're watching sports.
The other thing is like tennis players are huge babies.
Yes.
Very
Oh my
funny.
God. Yeah.
Because it's like they're always losing their minds, but it's not like in team sports where you have an opponent who's like pushing you or shouting at you or talking trash to you or like getting up in your face or like, you know, trying to hurt you a little bit. You know, it's just like it's just you're just getting real upset all by yourself.
Yeah. You know what's funny too is, can you imagine if the tennis, like the umpires association, were as touchy as soccer officials were, with the amount of times that people lost their ever living minds at these guys prior to the, like, it's almost like if you're under a certain age, you really missed the golden age of tennis, because now with that like shot spotter technology or Hawkeye or whatever they call it, where they can know down to the millimeter whether or not every shot is in or out. You used to have a lot of these that were just judgment calls, and people would just dumb out in the middle of these matches, yelling and screaming at these officials. People would be breaking rackets. People would be throwing shit because, yeah, they missed a lot of calls back in the day before there was technology to assist this stuff. And in a sport where the margins are so thin, yeah, but can you imagine those guys on Twitter talking about like, oh, McEnroe just unloaded on us again. This is unacceptable. And umpire abuse will never be tolerated in our world. It would have been. Thankfully, the internet wasn't around back then. It would have been great. Good in the 11. Grayson, my in the 11 is road sanity is how I'm going to term this, because apparently the Lachlan split is going away. I don't know how I had missed this. I don't know how that I had missed a traffic project of this proportion, but that famous little spot on I-75 that everyone has experienced going through with traffic when you've been trying to go north or south, where the highway inexplicably divides around the village of Lachlan for some reason, it's going bye-bye. Interstate 75 will once again make some semblance of sense. The worst highway exit in America, trying to get off at Lachlan right there, where it's just basically a right turn off of a major American interstate, is going away. Good riddance to the Lachlan split, or will you miss the Lachlan split? I have it in my head that every day when you would listen to the traffic report on the radio as a kid, they always had a backup at the Lachlan split. At the Cut in the Hill and the Lachlan split. Those were the two places, even though, you know, I wasn't driving, those were two places that I could name before I even knew anything on the map, were those two, because there was always traffic in those two locations.
Yeah, all I'll say is next time I'm on 75 is going to be too soon.
Oh, come on. It's a classic American road. Everybody loves I-75. It truly is the spine of America, going up and down the entire coast from Florida all the way to Detroit. I don't know how you can hate I-75. It's kind of what makes Cincinnati great in a lot of ways. I'm going to miss it. We actually thought back in the day that they should have named the mascot of Lockland High School the Splits. The Fighting Splits of Lockland, Ohio. I thought that would have been fantastic leading into the swerve. I think the shirts would have been hot sellers at all. I don't even know where you would buy a high school football shirt outside of the high school anymore, but I would own one. So, traffic sanity. That's in my 11. Grayson, what is out of your 18 today?
So I had one. I'm thinking about making a last second pivot.
Ooh.
But
trust your heart on this one.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put. No, actually, I'm gonna let this story marinate a little bit. Maybe we'll revisit it later. I'm gonna say putting out of my 18 private equity in youth sports.
Youth sports, not the NFL.
In youth sports, yes.
Okay.
I read a Bloomberg. I think it was Bloomberg Business article today about private equity groups. In particular, the one we was talking about in particular was actually spearheaded by David Blitzer, who is the owner of Real Salt Lake, among many other things. And them buying buying into travel baseball and travel baseball tournaments. And they said something like, we want to have like the Disneyland experience where they think about coming to one of our tournaments and they hear that we're the one running it. And they're like, well, at least it's going to be a really good experience. And it's just in the, arrow only goes up
Right.
world. Where these things always end up going. It becomes worse and more expensive.
Yeah.
And I don't like the creep into youth sports. I mean, it's probably too late for a lot of it, but like the big business of youth sports is going to forever creep me out. I was at and I know this also has been happening for years, but I was at a restaurant a couple weeks ago and they were televising on ESPN or one of the ESPN channels, a high school football game.
Yeah.
I know they've been doing that for a while, but I don't like it because as soon as you say like, okay, we're going to nationally televise high school football, then it's like, well, who's making money off this? And now we got to worry about how we're going to like trickle that money down to the players. And the more you turn like these kids into products, you start going down a road that like ends up with no real good outcomes. And
yeah,
I think it's different. It's very different to have a YouTube stream where you're showing like the MLS Academy tournament games, and if somebody wants to watch like the FC Cincinnati U17s play DC United U17s, they can go to the YouTube channel and pull it up, and it's like a very amateurish broadcast. It's another thing entirely that this is like a national ESPN level production,
right,
of kids.
Yeah, it's funny. I always found the Little League World Series to be a little creepy that they televised that. I don't know. I'm two minds of it. Number one, the private equity in youth sports. Well, I mean, all that's going to turn into is a race to the bottom, where all of a sudden your youth sports tournament will be. It's going to be a 2-inning baseball game where it's like one pitch, like beer league softball, where everybody starts on a 3-2 count, so that we can get as many of these teams in and out as possible. Everything will be paid for by some sponsorship that's trying to hawk these kids and these parents products that offset the cost of hosting the tournament. That's awful. On the other hand, televising high school football games is how we all learn collectively as a society about Bishop Sycamore High School.
I know.
And I don't know that I want to live in a world where we all don't learn at the same time that there is a fake high school getting absolutely clobbered by IMG Academy on ESPN, and someone has to go and dive in to find out the con artist that is responsible for all of these things going on. So I'm two minds of this. I don't know.
I could go without knowing, though, about all the stuff that the kids from, I know they were college kids, the kids from the Netflix show Cheer got into.
Well,
after the show.
Yeah.
I could live without knowing all of that stuff. So
yeah, you take the good with the bad sometimes, I think. Yeah, I don't know. It's gross. I think it's only going to get worse too. There's just this insatiable demand for content, and
Everything is going to get worse forever.
Yes. So in terms of the company, the line is only going up. In terms of, my enjoyment of life, the line is going just plummeting straight downward, which, as long as your mindset is okay, there's some comedy in that, a little bit. I mean, that's entertaining. Like, every time we hit rock bottom, someone throws us a shovel and says, keep digging. I guess there's some perverse enjoyment that you can get out of that, I think, if you squint hard enough, at the very least. Yeah. Do you know anyone whose kids have families, or was your family big into those like travel sports things? Because I hear some just wild stories about stuff like that. I was never athletic enough.
We
to
were
do
not.
That. Like, I wasn't good enough.
We were not. I was always like in. I mean, this eventually changed, but when I started high school, like I was the only kid on my school team who wasn't in one of the like club programs around town.
So you never had to sell the candy bars to everybody door to door, which was also a really weird thing, I think.
I don't think we ever had to sell. I don't think I ever had to sell any candy bars.
Yeah. The ultimate Ponzi scheme. Like, everybody around the I was friends with a bunch of people that played. They called it Select. I don't know if they still call it that, but all the Select kids had to go around pawning off candy bars on people in the neighborhood, and it was always that time of year again where everyone was knocking doors and just selling the same shit over and over again.
I remember in high school talking to a kid who was like, well, there's Select, but then there's Club. And
what?
And, yeah, I was like, whatever.
No, I'm gonna go play Nintendo like a normal kid. Cool. I'm gonna put out of my 18 this week the state of Ohio, because I don't know if you saw this, that Ohio has capped the number of marijuana dispensaries that can operate inside the city of Cincinnati. And to me, this is just big nanny state government telling me where I can and cannot buy weed. I believe the voters spoke. They wanted legal weed everywhere. I don't understand why it's okay to go into a gas station to buy beer, but I can't go into a gas station to buy weed. Instead, I have to go to this draconian process of being buzzed in to one of the limited dispensaries around town and acted like I'm doing something that's criminal and illegal, which, to be fair, it was, as recently as a year ago. But I don't understand why we're capping off the weed sale, especially when government is making tax money off this. If it were me, I would think you would want to be selling as much of the product as possible just to facilitate more tax revenue going in, more money going in. And if it were me also, I would make sure that there were 50 of these things around every college campus and 50 of these things at every bridge into the state. Like, when you cross into Ohio from Kentucky, the first thing you should see is the Welcome to Ohio sign. The second thing you should see is exit here to buy weed. Because then at that point, all their money is going to our government. I don't understand this. The state of Ohio once again takes a fat L on the 420 out of my 18 this week. Ohio for its stupid cannabis laws.
I'm sorry. I am so over dispensaries. They all look dumb.
They do look very dumb.
They all look dumb. And
but they shouldn't exist.
I also think that okay, well, two comments. One is the amount of like adults who are suddenly like really excited, and this started before the legal weed came to Ohio, when like Michigan and places it'd been legal for a few years. The number of adults who get like really excited about like pot now and have like, their gummies and talk about, like milligrams and stuff. It's like what are you 15? Like, grow up.
It's dangerous.
Grow up.
It's
like,
taboo.
And the other thing is like the amount of people who I know. It's like the amount of people who ingest some kind of weed product on a weekly, near daily basis. It went from like college, it was like at a high level and then dipped for a while, and like then it just shoots up again. And I don't know, is this is this what we want?
I don't know. Maybe
Not to
the world could be
stand
to be a little mellower, I think.
Yeah, I guess, but
I don't know. I just find it very funny that the majority of the people that
mostly I'm just like, grow up or smoke a joint.
Right.
You know, like it's it cool.
Roll your own.
It's like with the vapes. Like there's a reason that the kid who stole his grandma's car said, "My friend smokes real cigarettes." Did you ever see that video?
No, I haven't seen this video.
It's like a kid steals his grandma's car. He's like 11 or something.
The 10-year-old kid that steals it.
Yeah. And he's like, I like to do bad things. My friend smokes real cigarettes. You know why he said that? Because it's cool to smoke real cigarettes.
Like vape's not.
You know what's not? You know what not's cool? Throwing a battery away every other day.
Well, first off, you get the rechargeable vape. Everybody knows this.
Also, don't smoke cigarettes. Also, grow up on that too.
No. Smoke unfiltered cigarettes. Get yourself some Lucky Strikes. That's what a real person would do.
Or if you're going to smoke cigarettes, roll your own.
Yeah. Herbal cigarette. Do you ever find kids in college that smoke cloves? Jesus.
Oh man.
Isn't it incredible though how I don't know if you've experienced. It sounds like you've experienced this. The number of people who are over the age of, I'll say, 50 that are suddenly real big into weed. The 50 and 60-year-old crowd, where it's like, where the hell were you for the last 40 years on the subject of legalization? Because it wasn't pulling at the level of people that I see who are suddenly gleeful about bringing gummies everywhere they go places.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, because it does feel like a lot of older people are getting into it, and I remember it being like you couldn't even talk about it when I was a kid.
No. Oh God, it was completely taboo.
Yeah. So
I guess this just shows the power of not needing to know a drug dealer in order to do something. That, like, if you needed to know a drug dealer to play Xbox games, there'd probably be a lot fewer people playing Call of Duty. Maybe not. I don't know. It's a good game. Maybe life would find a way on that one. I just don't like the dispensary. You're dead on about the dispensary thing. It's an awful experience. It's like if the Apple Store was designed by the dumbest person imaginable. It would be like what a dispensary looks like. Just like, if I want to get a beer, I can run into a convenience store. I can grab a 6-pack or a 12-pack. I can pay with my phone, and I can be out the door in 5 minutes. Like, don't make this into a thing where it's like, well, tell me what kind of high you're looking for. What kind of product? Just give me some mids and let me get on with my day in 2 minutes.
also all that stuff's fake, right?
It has to be. Like, who's studying this?
Totally,
like, who's...
He's like, it's like, you want like an indica or a sativa? It's like, shut up.
Right. No, you know what?
Shut
up. It's all the same stuff. It's like trying to decide, like, do you want a Corona or do you want a Dos Equis? I know this is brewed in the same place. It's the same stuff. It's just the bottle is a different color. Don't try to bullshit me on this. Well, this is a Pacifico. It's not a Corona. I don't care. Put a lime in it. Just whatever's quick.
Anyway, I think I think I'm just already tired of it.
Yeah. You know what would help you not be annoyed by this? A couple milligrams, take the edge off. Grayson, do you have anything else for the people before we get the hell out of here?
No, I think I've made enough people mad.
There we go. Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Cincy Postcast, which is a production of The Post Cincy. You can check us out at thepostcincy.com for all of our written content as well as links to our social media. You can follow us on Twitter, and as well you can join us on our Discord server. You can find links to that server both in this episode description as well as on our website. That is where most of our conversations are going on. We have a lovely community there talking about FC Cincinnati, MLS, anything and everything else and everything in between. We also want to give a huge thanks to Jim Trace and the Makers for providing all of the music you've heard throughout this episode. They're an amazing local Cincinnati band. Again, more information about them is in the description of this episode. And if you enjoyed what you listened to, and you've made it to the end, so I'm going to assume you liked it, or you just can't reach your stop button, please like us, review us, subscribe to us wherever you are getting your podcasts. That is going to be really, really helpful. But more importantly, share this with a friend. A personal recommendation helps spread a podcast so much further. So please share this if you know somebody in your life who's an FC Cincinnati fan, an MLS fan, somebody that you think would enjoy this. Pass it on over. Thank you so much again for listening. It blows me away that people continue to listen to us, and thank you so much again.